Room only. My name is Dr. DeMeo. Welcome to the 4 o'clock session. I think this is our last session for the Student Research Conference. I am very pleased to introduce Ms. Erin Richards. Erin is a graduating senior. She is a double major in AYA Social Studies in the Education Department, as well as a history major. And today she's presenting on the search for MIAs from World War II on the islands of Palau. Erin's research that she'll be presenting today is part of her senior capstone in history, and she had the unique and exciting opportunity to actually go to Palau, which is in the Pacific, to help look for downed World War II aircraft. And so that's the inspiration for her project. I think we should all also take a moment to wish Erin's dad, who is here in the back, a happy birthday, because this is how he's chosen to spend his birthday. So happy birthday, Mr.
Thank
Richards.
you very much.
Happy birthday. So without further ado, Erin Richards.
As Dr. Mayo was saying, my project is on the search for MIAs from World War II on the islands of Palau. I had the lucky opportunity of my dad being a high school teacher, and his robotics team is nationally recognized for robotics. They were in multiple competitions in an organization called Prop. Saw them in a newspaper article and asked them if they could bring their ROV, a remotely operated vehicle, which travels underwater with cameras, to search for MIAs and downed World War II airplanes on the islands of Palau. And I got to tag along. My research question is the tactics and techniques, wondering what they would use to search for MIAs and to recover U.S. servicemen from World War II on the islands of Palau since 1944. I am going to show that the changes or updates of techniques and tactics at the end of from the end of World War II on the islands of Palau has helped JPAC and other independent organizations overcome obstacles to find MIAs from World War II. This is mainly done by archival research that I've done through the National Archives and Records Administration and through my on-site research on the islands of Palau. And now, an MIA is a missing in action. This can be determined by a man who has disappeared involuntarily, but due to death or other prisoners or other circumstances, not voluntarily. So they could be a prisoner of war or died and not been found. Now, Palau is 500 miles east of the Philippines, and it's also north of Australia. There is 4 major main islands and 200 rock islands surrounding Palau. The 4 islands are Babaldock, Koror, Palau, and Angar. And I'm going to mainly talk about the search on Palau and the water surrounding. The geography on the island is mainly jungle and coral rock. As you can see in this picture, it's very hard to travel through the jungle, and there's also ticks and unfriendly bugs that you would have to deal with in the jungle. It's hard to maneuver. There's trees everywhere, bamboo around. Now, how this started is the Battle of Palau. This was part of MacArthur's island hopping during World War II. He would have hopped to islands to take their airfield so they could get to the Philippines and retake that over, and also Tokyo in Japan on their plan for an invasion. As you can see on the beach, this is on the invasion. There was 2 invasion sites. The Marines and the Army invaded on 2 separate beaches on Palau, one being White Beach and the other being Orange Beach. The island shore is made up of coral rock. As you can see in this picture, it's hard to maneuver, it's very slippery, and it's hard to walk on. If you do so, you're more likely going to fall because of the coral rock, and you will be hurt. This is rock, and there's also a reef outside, not letting ships to come in onto the beach. As they were coming up onto the beach, the Army had to deal with multiple artillery fire back from the Japanese. There was 13,000 Japanese soldiers on the island at the time, and it was vicious fighting. They would have to deal with, in this picture, it would be a bunker where they would be shooting out of at you as you're coming up onto the beach. After taking the beach, they went onto the airfield. This was crucial in MacArthur's plan of taking the airfield and island hopping. As you can see, the airfield is also made out of coral. They were taking this over from the Japanese. And the next part was Bloody Nose Ridge. On the island, there's multiple hills and steep hills to go up. Bloody Nose Ridge was holding caves of also many of the 10,000 or so Japanese soldiers hiding out in caves. This took 70 days to complete. when they thought it would only take a week to take the whole island. So they would take up the whole entire ridge and go up, and they would be fighting through caves to the Japanese within. Now, after the war completed, World War II in 1945, the American Graves Registration took over searching for MIAs in specific islands from World War II in the Pacific and also in Europe. Their job and tactics that they used was to look at temporary cemeteries and remove the bodies from the temporary cemeteries, identify them by dog tags or dental records. If they would go by word of mouth and also records of the temporary cemeteries. They also moved these soldiers to the Philippines to cemeteries over there. They were no longer on the island. How the American Graves Registration was organized is by three groups. They would have one group collecting the information of where the temporary cemeteries were, the second group would find them, and the third group on this chart would identify them by dog tags or dental records. So that organizational chart shows the three tiers of how it was organized. My second time period that showed a shift and change of finding MIAs was during Vietnam. Vietnam was very hostile, and there was an uprising in the United States or protests against the war. With that, they were upset about POWs as well going from Vietnam. So they formed joint JPAC, Joint POW Missing in Action Accounting Command, to search for Vietnam MIAs. This ultimately turned over to multiple different wars and different MIA searches, including Palau. Now, the unique thing about JPAC is that they also use military records. Instead of just doing by what word of mouth of finding cemeteries, they went deeper. They looked not by cemeteries, but they looked in the jungle and other places where MIAs were. And they did this by missing aircrew reports and also different accounting commands of where the mission was and where they ultimately didn't turn back up. The third stage is present day, the new millennium. Now JPAC has not had the funding to do all the research themselves. Funding has come short. So smaller organizations, such as WWII, does searches on the islands of Palau. The tactics they use is oral interviews. They will talk to people who were there on the island during World War II and experienced it. This is an 80-year-old man that we interviewed while I was in Palau. He was forced into labor, and he was taken as prisoners and being mass murdered and putting into mass grave sites. The funny and unique thing about him, his dad was actually killed by the U.S. military during World War II, but he hates the Japanese. He dislikes them because of being forced into labor, and even though we ultimately killed his father, he still supports the United States till today. Another woman we introduced is a 90-year-old woman who was forced out of her house and had to hide in the jungle during World War II. Saw a Corsair, which is a patrol airplane, flying around the island and get shot down by a Japanese. WWII is trying to make sure that this is ultimately true and is trying to find this airplane and see who it was exactly. The second technique and tactic they use is scuba diving. They'll go underwater where it's visible to see and see if they can find any World War II airplanes that way. They'll search them and they'll look for identification plates to identify who the plane belonged to, if they're missing, or if they're ultimately made it out of the war. Another tactic WWII use is they will look at the missing aircrew reports. This is an example of a B-24 aircrew that they have actually found, and they went through the military records to see where they were last reported or where they were shot down at. Their next technique and tactic is by soil samples. A new thing that has come out with technology these days is DNA. They have actually been able to take soil samples and see if there is decomposition of DNA under the ground and see if it's when it's from. It goes back 60, 70 years to see if there was actually someone buried there. This is an example in a trench of someone recording in actually the Tokyo trials of where they buried possible MIAs from World War II and priests from Palau who are missionaries. And they're possibly in this grave, at least 11 men possibly there, and they're still waiting on the DNA results. The next tactic they use is ROVs and AUVs. ROVs are remotely operated vehicles, which is shown here, is where you can go underwater and search for anything that's deeper and not safe enough to go down to scuba dive. Once you're down like 150 feet, it's dangerous and the pressure is so high that you cannot dive down there. So they're using other vehicles or other devices so they can take pictures and video and see if there's actually anything down there worth seeing. And the problem that they have to deal with is mines and explosives still on the island today. They've had a problem where Palau's army, the remnants of war are still there. There's thousands of landmines still on Palau, and making it difficult for families who lived on the islands before to even go back. There's hundreds of villages that people are no longer allowed to live in. They do have where you can go on some of the trails. As you can see, there's a marker with white and red on it. You can only stay on the white side of that marker. If you go on the other side where it's red, you have the possibility of being blown up by a landmine because they are still there today. The sticks there are the sticks of where they found landmines that day that we were there. So as you can see, there's a lot. Princess Diana had a mission where she wanted to remove all the landmines from any war zone, and this is part of the mission. This is a group from Great Britain who's in Australia that's looking to remove all the landmines on Palau. Some of the results that we have come to. This is a corsair that we actually was discovered while we were there in Palau. The ROV took these pictures to see the plane. There was no MIA on the plane, but it's still something cool that you can find underwater, and it's still there today. The pilot is still alive in Florida and kicking, and his son's possibly going to come out and scuba dive over the plane to see it. This is a B-24 bomber. It's the fuselage and the wing of a B-24. They found this on one of the first trips that Prop did on the islands, and they're still looking for the air crew of this plane. But it's another step in finding where the MIAs are. This is an Avenger that they found on Palau about 6 years ago, and they used this and they found the MIAs on the Avenger on the island. Some Palauans actually saw it and knew where it was, and just they never reported it. And when Prop came around, they actually told them. In conclusion, you can see on World War II, the focus was just on finding temporary cemeteries, and it was word of mouth. Vietnam, it switched to where JPAC was founded and had an organization looking at military records and searched outside of cemeteries in the jungle and the ocean instead of just where the cemeteries were. And today, new technologies has brought it where you have more resources and different stuff to look for by using those technologies. Here's a picture of the Bent Prop team and the former president of Palau when we did a search dig, or DNA sample dig on the island of Palau. I would like to thank Bent Prop for letting me tag along, and Dr. DeMayo for letting me skip class for 2 weeks to actually do this research. I'm going to open it up to questions now.